Welcome everyone to the Global Child Thrive Act webinar. My name is Caitlin Warmbold. I am the project officer for the Global Child Thrive Act buy-in under the Youth Power 2 Learning and Evaluation Project. It is a pleasure to see so many joining us early this morning. So I have a few reminders for everyone to please keep yourself muted and turn the camera off when you're not speaking. Feel free to post your questions in the chat at any time. We have closed captioning available for anyone who wants it, which you can see at the bottom of your screen. We also will be recording this webinar and making it available with the slides on our website. So today's webinar serves to highlight the work that is contributing to the Global Child Thrive Act. This webinar today brings together work across 3 government agencies and their partners who are all helping to operationalize the Global Child Thrive Act law. They will share about their work, what they've learned, and how we can integrate early childhood development across sectors. Next slide, please. Before we get to that, I would like to turn the stage over for some opening remarks from 3 representatives in the US government. First, we'll hear from Rebecca Levy, who is the US government's Special Advisor for Children in Adversity. Over to you, Rebecca.
Thank you so much, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks everyone for joining us today to learn more about how the US government is operationalizing the Thrive Act. I'm really happy to be joined by colleagues from the Departments of State and Labor, as well as colleagues from several implementing partners, to highlight how we can work together across sectors to improve early childhood development outcomes. For those who may not be as familiar with the Global Child Thrive Act and the urgency, necessity of improving early childhood development outcomes, I'm going to start by sharing a brief video that explains more about the law and is more interesting than hearing me speak. So let's go to the video. There we go.
When a baby reaches out to a parent or caregiver, it presents a critical opportunity to impact their future. Yet all too often across the globe, these opportunities are missed, with ripple effects that extend into communities, economies, and ultimately the shape of our world. The Global Child Thrive Act mandate is an opportunity for the US government to build strong beginnings for millions of children all over the world. Responding to a child and learning to recognize their cues makes all the difference. We see it in their eyes as they light up when a parent or caregiver interacts directly with them. These engaging interactions are the hallmarks of responsive care. They are essential building blocks of providing a baby with an optimal start to life. Early childhood development occurs from before birth through age 8. A child acquires their physical, cognitive, language, and social emotional abilities during this period. A child's brain makes 1 million neural connections each second, developing more rapidly in the first years of life than at any other time. 90% of a child's brain is developed by age 5. But exposure to adversities and prolonged stress in this critical period has toxic and lasting effects on the child's brain. Nurturing care consisting of adequate nutrition, early learning, good health, responsive care, and safety and security can mitigate these adversities and allow all children to thrive. The Global Child Thrive Act mandates that US government foreign assistance makes integrated and inclusive investments, delivering all components of nurturing care to promote optimal early childhood development. How does the US government implement the law and help children achieve their full potential? We support families to provide loving interactions by creating an enabling environment of policies, systems, and services anywhere we reach children and caregivers. A baby looks at the world with wonder and curiosity. We know that being responsive to their inquisitive minds can make a world of difference in shaping their futures. It is incumbent upon all of us to hear them, see them, and commit to nurturing their development wherever we work, to move them toward a healthy, fulfilling life. For more information about the U.S. government's commitment to early childhood development through the Global Child Thrive Act and our work to advance the development, care, and protection of children in adversity, please visit childreninadversity.gov/thrive.
Thank you. Hopefully that one put a smile on your face. I always love to watch that. So although the Global Child Thrive Act is relatively recent, it is reinforcing work that USAID has been doing for many years. It's aligned with our U.S. government strategy for advancing protection and care for children in adversity, or APCA. And for more than 10 years, we've had a first objective to build strong beginnings focused on promoting early childhood development. And this complements our two other objectives around supporting all children to live in family care and protecting children from violence. The Thrive Act also promotes objectives from several other U.S. government policies and strategies, including the recently released USG strategy for basic education. Investments across health, education, and other sectors are critical for early childhood development, but health, nutrition, and access to schooling alone are not sufficient to provide the social, emotional, and cognitive development that children need to thrive. So in order to operationalize this law, we have to identify opportunities to enhance existing platforms and programs across sectors with evidence-based approaches to improve early childhood development outcomes. Primarily, this focuses on additional support for parents and caregivers to provide that essential care and protection to support optimal childhood development, including addressing caregiver well-being and mental health, and importantly, attending to the needs of children with disabilities and their families. For children growing up in crisis contexts, including an estimated 87 million children under the age of 7 who have spent their entire lives in conflict zones, children's risk of experience violence and other forms of harms and adversities increases at this critical point in their lives. Substantial evidence shows that prolonged adversity in this narrow window can negatively alter a child's future with devastating long-term effects impacting health, learning, behavior, and can create a pernicious cycle of instability and poverty, damaging individual prospects as well as larger community goals of social cohesion, resilience, and equity. But importantly, in the face of these challenges, proven solutions are within reach. There has been just tremendous momentum globally to advance early childhood development. We're seeing more and more of our partner countries developing multi-sectoral early childhood development policies and strategies. The Global Child Thrive Act gives USAID and other US government agencies a mandate and an opportunity to partner with the broader movement for improving early childhood development. So today we'll learn more about how different US government agencies are working across very different settings and sectors and how they've operationalized this law through programming. Before getting into the panel, I'm going to turn it over to my USG colleagues. So starting with McKee Cross at the Department of Labor, and then to Hallie Sands at the Department of State to provide some brief introductory remarks. So over to you, McKee.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. First, I would like to thank colleagues at USAID for pulling this webinar together, as well as colleagues at State, our various partner organizations, and everyone else represented on the call here today. The U.S. Department of Labor's Bureau of International Labor Affairs, or ILAB, strengthens global labor standards, enforces labor commitments among trading partners, promotes racial and gender equity, and addresses international child labor, forced labor, and human trafficking. ILAB contributes to the USG's Foreign Assistance on Children in Adversity program by supporting programs to address child labor, expanding global knowledge on child labor issues, including in supply chains, and empowering adult workers. ILAB, in line with the APCCA, is supporting children and families around the world by preventing child labor, through family and economic strengthening, and working closely with communities to support an environment that allows children to thrive. Addressing the complex issues of child labor and forced labor requires addressing the underlying determinants that drive people into these exploitative environments. Issues such as poverty and a weak labor law environment drive conditions that lead to child and forced labor and other injustices. Social safety nets, in particular adequate social protection systems, childcare, and education, are essential for preventing the conditions that lead to child or forced labor. Taking a gender and child-sensitive approach to social protection helps us understand how these systems can be designed to minimize harms and maximize potential benefits for women and children in particular. I'm very pleased that you will hear today from our partners at PACT, who have integrated childcare into their labor program in Madagascar to provide an essential service for working women that ensures children are in a safe, stimulating environment to promote their development. I hope the many presentations of our various partner organizations here today get us thinking not only about how the US government and its partners can support, amplify, and replicate successful approaches to child protection abroad, but also get us thinking about how we can address gaps in social protection systems for children here in the US and in all other countries represented on the call here today. And so with that, I believe I will turn it back to colleagues at USAID to take over. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rebecca, and thank you, Maki. I would next like to turn it over to Haley Sands. Haley was unable to join us today, but provided a recording for us to share with you. Haley Sands is a political affairs officer with the Department of State's Bureau for Population, Refugees, and Migration. If you can then play the video.
Good morning. My name is Haley Sands, and I so wish that I could be there with you in person today, but I did want to record a message so that I can be a part of your conversation and share some thoughts from PRM. So as you know, the U.S. Department of State has long-standing commitments to advance the development, care, and protection of the world's most vulnerable children. Through numerous bureaus and offices, the Department of State has contributed to the well-being of children in adversity in alignment with all three of the strategic objectives outlined in the U.S. government strategy for advancing protection and care for children in adversity, or APCA, as Rebecca has already highlighted, which includes the commitment to build strong beginnings that was reinforced by the Global Child Thrive Act. I sit in the Bureau of Population, Refugees, and Migration, otherwise known as PRM, where we address the unique needs of displaced and stateless children through global humanitarian assistance programs and humanitarian diplomacy to advocate for the world's most vulnerable children. Our programs strive to ensure that children thrive in protective environments by supporting caregivers, strengthening child-friendly spaces, and supporting community and national systems to address children's long-term needs. Children all over the world experience a variety of risks to their development, and we know that adverse childhood experiences negatively impact later life outcomes. Adversities can include things such as poverty, malnutrition, food insecurity, poor caregiver mental health, being born small or sick, among many others. Research shows that as the number of adversities in a child's experience or that a child is exposed to increases, the severity of impact rises. These adverse experiences and hardships accumulate to cause social, emotional, and cognitive delays, leading to higher incidence of disease and ultimately early death. There have been huge increases in the number of forcibly displaced children in the last decade, from 15.9 million in 2010 to 36.5 million in 2021. These children are exposed to numerous adversities that can lead to toxic stress, which has been shown to negatively affect children's brain development. However, there is also growing evidence about what we can do to mitigate the negative effects of these exposures on children's development. These include parenting programs that support caregiver mental health and support responsive, playful interactions between caregivers and their young children, wherever they may be. Supporting a caregiver's own well-being and building resilience is particularly important in these settings. Further, supporting access to early childhood care and education can provide a stable source of social and emotional support to young children living in conflict and crisis. We know that focusing on the early years is really important, and I'm pleased that you will hear today from the team at Save the Children that implemented a PRM-funded program to respond to the needs of young migrant and internally displaced children in Colombia and Iraq and their families in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis. This program is one example of how the Department of State is investing in support to young children and their families, to support their development, their care, and ultimately their protection. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a really meaningful conversation this morning.
Thank you to Haley, McKee, and Rebecca for those opening remarks. Next, I would like to turn it over to Marana Rakoto Sami Manana. Marana is the Country Director for PACT Madagascar's Shines program. Before I pass it over, I want to remind those of you who are listening in to please add comments or thoughts you have in the chat as you listen in. We will come back to your questions at the end of the webinar. With that, over to you, Marana.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mirana Rakoto-Sami, and I am the project director for Madagascar Shines project. I am pleased to present you the early childhood component for the Madagascar Shines project. So PACT is implementing this project, which aims to reduce child labor in the mica producing communities of Madagascar. And this project is funded by USAID. The project is intervening in the south of Madagascar, where I am currently right now, and where most of the mica is mined. PACT is implementing a three-pronged approach to contributing to reducing the child labor in the mica supply chain by addressing economic drivers and enhancing household resiliency, improving coordination and capacity for child protection among government of Madagascar, non-governmental stakeholders, particularly the private sector entities, civil society organizations, and media. And of course, for that, the project has three main pillars, which are community engagement, government engagement, and private sector engagement. Next slide, please. You can see that the project has three objectives, but we'll focus on the first one, which is enhancing the resiliency of mining communities. Of course, when we designed the project, we identified the theory of change, mainly based on the willingness of the private sector to adjust to child labor within the sector, but also on the volunteer of the families to address their resilience. Next slide, please. The mining communities, of course, represent the foundation of mica production in Madagascar. And our initial assessment of the mica supply chain in the southern part of Madagascar revealed that the problematic situation of mica informal mining in general, which takes place in a very hard socio-economical context, which is overlapping between poverty, job, remoteness, and insecurity, really impact access to health and social services for these mining communities. And this access of basic services is really impacting for children and the mother particularly. As you can see on the slides, evidence has shown that the income made by women directly benefits their families, particularly the health of the families, the education of the children, and also the food and the nutritional of the families. And during our baseline, we found that women constitute only 11% of the workers in the mining sector, mica mining sector indeed, and childcare has been one of the major factors undermining their participation. we can see that women may face gender-based violence if they don't have access to resources, and it may create other issues as well. And we learned during this baseline, finally, that without childcare options, MICA women from these mining communities have to find creative solutions. And most of the times they ask their older children to take care of their siblings, which creates other issues because it impacts as well their schooling. And if there was no other one to take care of the babies, women are forced to skip work, and that means zero earnings for them. So next slide, please. On the other hand, it impacts as well for children because mica mining is very dusty and it operates in an unsafe environment, which is full of potential threats for young children, and particularly the dangers to health and safety in many activities made unfit for children, especially babies and toddlers who plays and like to go all around, and it is unacceptable under any circumstances. Of course, the remoteness of mica mining sites, insecurities in this area, and lack of resources creates many challenges for mica mining families. However, unsafe conditions and the negative interactions, and of course, this lack of access to educational opportunities during particularly the early years for the children can lead to irreversible outcomes and can affect, of course, children's potential for their future. Next slide, please. Indeed, Madagascar Shine's interventions aims to withdraw children from the mica mining activities and, of course, increasing immediate and long-term resilience for vulnerable households involved in mica mining activities. As such, our targeted population will be mainly the mica households and children affected by or involved in mica mining. Given the context that I previously exposed, childcare services is a ray of hope for mica women, mica children, and we can say for mica mining communities. And having access to childcare services means having a safe place for little children, and of course, a relief for female minors. When we did the community assessment, a mother shared that just knowing that her child is safe and receive appropriate nutritional support during the daytime, and that they are playing with other children and have time to sleep in a normal environment when they are tired, gives this woman motivation to concentrate on their home, on their work, and gives them also a feeling of peace. Next slide, please. So for that to be possible, we are adopting several approaches. The first of it is a consultative approach. We wanted to develop the childcare options on a participatory way in partnership with the mining communities. So we collaborate with them to define the norms and standards which are adapted to their context. We develop partnership as well with local authorities so that they contribute to the development of these childcare options, and develop partnership with key stakeholders to implement school canteen, educational, and other learning activities. We need, of course, to ensure sustainability, to build local capacity. So we identify the caregivers among the communities. We provide trainings for these community caregivers. We train as well teachers and other educators to bolster local capacity. Of course, we are intentional in improving mining communities' awareness on children's rights and child protection by encouraging them to put their children in appropriate educational facilities. We adopted intentionally family-centered interventions where we are supporting these mica mothers and using our YP2LE named WRF as a platform to train women on positive parenting, disseminate health messaging, and raise awareness of available and health and educational services. We try to train them also on nutrition and other hygiene practices so that they can enhance their positive parenting skills. For long-term sustainability, we are intentional about establishing community ownership and putting in place social accountability when possible by engaging with local authorities and local leaders to define the strategies and approaches to ensure community engagement. And for that, we set up local management communities who are managing these childcare facilities. Next slide, please. When we did the participatory engagement approach involving the migrant minors communities, we've been able to develop 2 childcare concepts for mining communities. So first one, it's the childcare option at mica mining communities, at mining sites, this is done in collaboration with local authorities and in engaging local mica miners in their management. Of course, the private sector engagement will be the sustainability strategy because the mica exporters accepted to support this childcare option as part of their social corporate social responsibility plan. And we have been able to develop as well childcare options at mica processing centers, which are based mainly in bigger town in partnership with mica exporters who committed to be child-friendly and wanted to contribute to childcare option implementation for their employees. For the 2 approaches, we are, of course, developing an integrated childcare programming, including social protection, nutrition, education, play, and early learning development activities for particularly under 5 years old children. And we are trying to organize for childcare based on the age of the children, and we are training the caregivers on based on that. Next slide, please. Given the approach that we are adopting, it's a long process. So far, we've been able to convince 4 mining communities to set up these childcare options, and 265 children are now enrolled to these childcare centers because their parents have agreed to do so. For the private sector entities, 6 mica processing centers accepted to conduct a pre-feasibility analysis, and we are still considering the motivation of its company to financially contribute to the realization of this project. Private sector engagement is key for sustainability of this approach, so we support the private sector entities to improve in sourcing practices, of course, and to not tolerate child labor or child implication in their activities. So we are collaborating with mica exporters as a critical entry point for these responsible mining activities, and as change agents as well, so that they collaborate with us in raising awareness among the communities, and they accepted to support these initiatives. So thank you for your attention. Yeah, that's Madagascar Shine's activities linked with early childhood development. Thank you.
Thank you, Marana, for that excellent recap of PACT Shine's program. Next, I would like to turn it over to John Ames and Chani Chek from the Integrated Early Childhood Development Activity in Cambodia. John is the activity's Chief of Party, and Chani is the activity's Senior Disability and Social Inclusion Specialist. With that, please feel free to take it away.
Thank you, everyone. My name is John Ames, Chief of Party for the IECD project. Thank you to our hosts from USAID and Making Sense and our other government partners, my fellow presenters, and all of you who are able to join us today. We can go to the next slide, please, our opening slide. I'm happy to present on behalf of the IECD project, along with my colleague Chani. USAID Integrated Early Childhood Development Project is funded by USAID, implemented by RTI International. Our main partner is Helen Keller International. And for the work that we'll be speaking about today under Objective 3, which you'll hear about in a minute, our partner is Safe Haven Medical Outreach. Next slide, please. So IECD is implemented on a cohort system. So we have 3 cohorts of this project, which are approximately 16 months long each. So operating in Kampong Tom and Preah Vihear provinces, which were selected because of high rates of poverty and high rates of malnutrition. So cohort 1 included 75 villages. Cohort 2 was 135 villages. And we're now implementing cohort 3, which is 206 villages. Next slide, please. So in some ways, the IECD project is like a microcosm of the Global Child Thrive Act, because we're an integrated approach working on a lot of different sectors related to early childhood development. So our first objective is related to improving physical, cognitive, linguistic, and socio-emotional development of young children under the age of 5. Second objective, decrease stunting rates for children under the age of 5 in Kampong Tom and Preah Vihear provinces. Our third objective, which is what we're focusing on today, is working with children with developmental delays and disabilities to receive appropriate care in our target provinces. Fourth, we have the WASH initiative, where we're working to improve access to safely managed water and expand access to sanitation services. Next slide, please. I'll hand it over to my colleague Chani to present this one. Thank you.
Thank you, John. So for IECD Objective 3, the first main activity is early detection and identification, which is called child screening activity. The first initial screening, which is using the community-based development milestone assessment tool, CBD-MAT, used by the community workers in Cambodia, we call Village Health Support Group, VSAG, and the community leader as a member of commune councils. Second, it is the in-depth screening for possible identification for those children from the first initial screening will be referred to medical professionals such as a physiotherapist, nurse, or doctor for in-depth screening using the Cambodia Development Milestone Assessment Tool. The shortcut is CDMAT, to identify and diagnose for developmental delay, disability, or other associated problems like health issue. Third, for the children also will be screened by our community workers with mid-upper arm circumference, MUA, to identify or having moderate or severe acute malnutrition, MEM and SAM. After identify, those children will be referred to the health centers to get treatments. All of these tools are used with a digital development data management platform, IECD ComCare app. Next, please. Next slide, please.
Thank you,
John.
Chani.
Yeah.
Sure, thank you. So for our child screening and identification across the 3 cohorts, so far we've screened just over 11,000 children. We initially were using the tool as it was originally designed, which is called CBD-MAT P99, percentage 99, which identifies children who are unable to perform a series of tasks that 99% of their peers in the same age band are able to perform. We came to the conclusion that this tool might lack sensitivity and in some cases may not be identified because of that percentage in relation to the age band that was being used. So we adapted the tool to create CBDMAT P75, which uses a 75% threshold for which children are unable to perform the same tasks that others in their same age band are able to perform. So through this screening system, we've identified almost 300 children with disabilities, developmental delays, or serious health issues, which could lead to, and most likely would lead to, disabilities further on. So you'll see on the right side of your screen, I'm not going to go into all of this data, but we're including this so that participants who will continue to have access to these presentations can see the types of developmental delays and disabilities that we are identifying through the screening process. So just to explain one more point on this data lists cohort 1 and 2 only because children screened in cohort 3 have not yet had their diagnoses confirmed by medical professionals yet. So please take a look at this if you're interested following the presentation. Thank you, and back to Chani.
Thank you, John. So next slide, please. After getting diagnosed, all of those identified children will receive the referral support and also home visit or home intervention, which is called the early intervention that is provided by our project. For those children who need specialized care or initial referral, they will be referred to the 3 above service. You can see at the top, the Onco Hospital for Children, All Ear Cambodia, and the National Pediatric Hospital. For ongoing and follow-up services, like physiotherapy services, those children will be referred to the physical rehabilitation centers. And for those who need health check or health follow-up, we'll refer to health center or provincial referral hospital. And as you see at the 4 pictures below, it is the home visit or home intervention activity. This is depend on the need of individual child. Therefore, some child will receive home visit that conducted by the community worker, the village health support group in the first picture. And also they could receive the home visit by IECD nurse or physiotherapist for the second picture. Or they can receive the home intervention by IECD interventionist, which is essential junior physiotherapist. And lastly, is the visit by our IECD partner, like Ministry of Social Affairs. Next slide, please. The third core activity of Objective 3 is the mission to strengthening the quality of sustainable services, community-based rehabilitations, we call CBR services. This includes the collaboration with Ministry of Social Affairs, Veteran and Youth Rehabilitation, MOSWI, and the Ministry of Health to provide the capacity building to government officials, especially at the sub-national level and the local authority like the commune councils. For instance, IECD established the physiotherapy room at Kampong Thom Physical Rehabilitation Center, and also another PT room at Previhir Provincial Referral Hospital, with the purpose of create a local available service that closer to the community where our children, identified children are living. In additionally, you can see in the picture at the right side, it is the we call community mobilization activity to support the actual need of children with disability at their home environment. So we create some man-made assistive device or home adaptation material that are made from existing available resources in community to mobilize the involvement from the parent, the caregiver, or community people, and also the local authority to support for those vulnerable children in their community. Next slide, please. Last but not the least, IECD also advocate to a local authority, like I mentioned, a commune council, to continue supporting the family and the children with disability in their community by the first is conducting the peer support group meeting. You can see in the picture that have people sitting there. That is the peer support group that we gathering a caregiver of children with disability to have the possibility to share their concern, challenge, or everything to one another. So we encourage the local authority to support for this activity. And also we encourage commune council to support for family of children with disability while they going to receive others like referral support. So we encourage the commune council to use the community budget to support for transportation as well as food allowance. Lastly, we also to ensure all our identified children with disability will be integrated into the ministry system by register those children to Ministry of Social Affairs system for disability identification card, so that they could receive some conditional cash transfer from the ministry, especially the we call social assistance fund or social protection fund that will be supported by our government for those who have a member or a household with disability, or they have the ID, they have the poor household. So that is all from what we implementation in Cambodia from IECD Objective 3. Next slide. So I think it's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Chani.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, John and Chani, for those insights on the integrated early childhood development activity. I would like to next introduce Ramila Karnati, PhD. Ramila is the Senior Director of Early Childhood Development at Save the Children. And with that, I will turn it over for you to discuss the ECD approach at Save the Children.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for this opportunity. Next slide. I'm here to introduce my colleagues, Haitham Majid from Save the Children Iraq and Laura Castillo from Save the Children Colombia, both of whom have been on the field implementing this program, which they will share with you today, on young children and families on the move, building resilience and transformative male caregiving in both Colombia and Iraq. Next slide. Before they present, we just wanted to frame it within the nurturing care framework, which much of the presentations before have been around, and recognizing how this global framework so aligns with the Global Child Thrive Act, and that for optimum development, all children need these 5 components of good health, adequate nutrition, responsive caregiving, safety and security, as well as opportunities for early learning. More importantly, and very critical here, is that children in an emergency or humanitarian settings need these essential services, which is at a risk of access for them, particularly their relationships or bonding with their caregivers, which has been disturbed, poor mental health well-being for caregivers and children, as well as physical health, are all impacted by displacement, conflict, and other adverse events. So with this background, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Haitham Majid from Iraq. Go ahead. Thank you. Next slide.
Thank you, Romina. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm going to speak more about the methodology of implementation of the program, of the ECD program that have been implemented in Iraq. If you can go to the next slide, please. The program itself has been implemented during the COVID-19 crisis. So we used a virtual implementation methodology by establishing a WhatsApp groups engaging families, men and women, the caregivers of the children in the refugee camps that we have been working in. So the program itself and encouraged parents to share what they are doing with their children, encourage them to establish a bond with their children. And in the photos, you are seeing some of the activities that have been shared during the time of the implementations. And also, it helped us to encourage the fact that they have been sharing some of the activities that they have been doing with their children, encouraged other parents also to do so and to do activities with their children. The groups themselves being established based on the neighborhoods, considering the economic and the economic challenges of these families, and to ensure that everyone is able to attend these groups with the communication challenges or the livelihood challenges that they have been in. So, and to build a better connection between the families. So it was based on the geographical connections of these families. We have been doing follow-ups with the support of focal points, community activists, and leaders who have been supporting us either by reminding families of the groups, the fathers who encouraging fathers to be part of the program, to be enrolled in, and also supporting others with the content of the guidelines of the program itself. We had to be more flexible with the timing, especially with the men being engaged on daily work in the poor communities that we have been working in. So it helped us to be more connected with father, to engage more men to be part of the programs. If you can go to the next slide, please. So with that, we had some lesson learned of the program itself, especially when it comes to the consultations, the importance of the consultations with the community before starting the programs, and that helped us a lot with the selection of the focal points from the community who are supporting, who are motivated by the program idea, and who had supported us with the implementations, encouragement, and motivating other families to be part of the program. The engagement of these community groups was added value and increased the level of participations of men and women, especially men who, as mentioned before, with the economic situations, they had to do a work, and it wasn't their priority with the cultural norms and practices. The flexibility of timing was very important to make sure that these families are engaged and part of the program. So we have been flexible with the time, and also with the period of implementation of the sessions. It was very important for us to do so. So we are able to increase the discussion with the families. We We wanted them to discuss among themselves the best practices, the activities that they are doing with their children based on the program requirements. Additionally, the methodologies we have used of learning were multiple, including sharing soundtracks, videos, pictures, paintings, and encouraging also parents to do similar when they are doing the activities implementation with their children. Just to add, is one of my aims to participate in this webinar was the great impact of the program implemented by Save the Children and supported by PRM in 2021. Because after 1 year, we have seen people practicing the activities and using the module we have implemented at that time. I'm going to ask my colleague to step in. Over to you.
Gracias, Majid. Buenos días.
Thank you,
Vamos a
Mahid, and good
sentarnos para que
morning.
puedan cambiar
I'm just
el-
going to
el
give it a
lenguaje.
moment
Next slide,
so you can
please.
switch the language in your Zoom. Next slide, please.
Bueno, es un gusto para nosotros presentar
We're
nuestra
very happy to
experiencia
be
en
here to share
Colombia.
our experience from
Queremos
Colombia.
contarles que nuestro programa se implementó
Our
en 6
program was
asentamientos
implemented in 6
informales
informal
en Maicao, en La
settlements
Guajira,
in
esto al
Maicao, in the
norte
La
del
Guajira
país.
region in the north of
Principalmente
Colombia.
participaron
We had
412 padres y
412
cuidadores
parents and
y
caregivers
sus hijos e hijas,
and
que
their
fueron alrededor de
children,
596,
around
entre los
596
0 y
children
los 6 años de edad.
between ages
Nuestra
0
implementación
and
también
6.
ocurrió, al igual que Irak, en el año
Just
2021,
as
en el
in
contexto
Iraq,
del
our implementation
COVID-19
began in
y
2021 in the
también
context
se
of
le añade la
COVID-19,
crisis migratoria que vivimos
added
en
to
Colombia
the
también
migration crisis that we
proveniente
are
de
living in
Venezuela
Colombia,
principalmente. Algo que
particularly
también les
migrants
quiero
coming from
mencionar como
Venezuela.
una característica
Something else that I'd like
importante
to
de este
mention as an
territorio
important
es su
characteristic
alta
of our
condición de
country
vulnerabilidad,
is the
principalmente
high
más del
vulnerability
90% de la
conditions
población de
where
sus
around
asentamientos
90%
vive
of
en
the population
condiciones de
in these
necesidades
settlements
básicas
live
insatisfechas
in
y pues
conditions
eso
of
también nos
unmet
requería una
basic
atención
needs,
importante
which
en términos de
took
nuestra
important
programación.
attention from us
Nuestra
in terms
programación
of
pues
our
se basó
program.
en cohortes también, en
Our
grupos de
programming was
cuidadores
also based on
que
different
estuvieron
cohorts
8
or groups
semanas en
of
el
caregivers
programa
who
a
spent
través de
eight
implementación
weeks
remota,
in the
principalmente
program
grupos de
through
WhatsApp. Y
remote apps,
posteriormente,
including
en la medida
WhatsApp
que
groups.
fuimos, que fue aperturando también todo el proceso de COVID y
As
fuimos
the
entendiendo
COVID
también otras
process
necesidades,
ran its
se
course, we
realizaron sesiones
understood other
telefónicas
needs,
y sesiones
so we also
presenciales
added telephone
conjuntas
and
con
face-to-face
los cuidadores
sessions
y un seguimiento
with the
individual a las
caregivers
familias.
and provided
También en las
individual
comunidades
follow-up
habilitamos
to the
puntos de
families.
internet y la misma comunidad también
We
activó altavoces
installed
comunitarios
internet points in the
para que
communities, and
otros
the
cuidadores que
communities
tenían dificultades en
also
el
used
acceso
loudspeakers for other
pudieran
caregivers who
escuchar y
have
pudieran
difficulty
estar atentos a
accessing,
las
for them
sesiones.
to be able to
También
listen
conocí un
to these
grupo de
sessions
cuidadores que
out
tenían
loud.
dificultades o no
There
sabían
were groups
leer.
of caregivers
Les
who were
enviábamos
illiterate
audios o
or had
notas de voz por
difficulty
WhatsApp
accessing the information,
para que pudieran
so we
también
would
escuchar
share
las
information
sesiones
using
y
voice memos
habilitamos horarios
on
flexibles
WhatsApp,
para las
and
familias,
we had
como
flexible
realizar
schedules
llamadas los
for
fines de
families,
semana o
such as
sesiones
making
en las
calls on
noches.
weekends or holding night
También hubo, por
sessions.
ejemplo, sesiones traducidas a lengua
Some of the
indígena
sessions were
guayunanqui para
translated
los
into the
hablantes
Wayunaiki
colombianos y
indigenous language for
venezolanos.
those
Next
Colombian and
slide, please.
Venezuelan speakers who do not speak Spanish. Next slide, please.
Al mismo tiempo, Save the Children realizó un
Save
estudio
the
que tenía
Children
como objetivo
conducted a
monitorear
study
los
which
cambios en los
aimed to
resultados y el
monitor
desarrollo de
changes
los
in
niños y
the
niñas,
results of
monitorear las
children
actitudes y los
development,
comportamientos de los
monitoring
cuidadores
attitudes
y
and
entender cómo la
behaviors from
implementación de las
caregivers, and
prácticas de crianza
understanding the way in
tenía alguna
which
influencia o algún efecto
the
en el aprendizaje temprano y en el desarrollo
practices
de la
child
niñez. El
care
estudio se
practices had
utilizó un
impacts in
enfoque
the development
horizontal
of their
mixto.
childhood.
Tuvimos un grupo
A
de
mixed
tratamiento
approach,
o un
a
grupo de
longitudinal approach
implementación y
was
un grupo
used.
de comparación
We had an
que no
implementation
recibía el
group and a
programa para
comparison
poder
group
analizar los cambios
in
en
the
sus
program
resultados
to
y
analyze
posteriormente
changes
el
in the
grupo
program results.
de control
And
también o de comparación
later,
también
the
recibió y
control group
participó
or the
en el
comparison
programa.
group was also
Next
able
slide,
to
please.
participate in the program. Next slide, please.
Como parte de nuestros resultados
As
y de las
part
lecciones
of
aprendidas, queremos
the results
contarles
and
que
the lessons learned,
encontramos que el programa contribuyó al
we
desarrollo
found that the
positivo de los
program
niños y
contributed
niñas,
to the positive development of
principalmente en el
children,
grupo más pequeño,
especially
de
in
0 a
the
36
group
meses.
of the youngest group
Encontramos
of
que los
0 to
niños de los
36
padres que
months.
participaron
We
en el
found that
programa
children of parents
tenían un
who
desarrollo mucho más
attended the
sólido y su
program
puntuación
had a
con las
more
herramientas que
solid
utilizamos
development in terms of
tenían un
using
puntaje
the rating tools
0.59 puntos porcentuales
with
por
a
encima de
score
los
of
niños de los padres que
0.59
no
points
habían participado en
above
el programa.
those
También a
children
nivel general
whose
encontramos
parents
que
had
en
not
este mismo
participated in
grupo
the
de edad,
program.
los
We also
cuidadores
found
que
for the same age
confirmaron
group
tener
that
acceso a sus
caregivers who
hogares
reported having
abiertos y que
access to
jugaban con los
toys
niños y habían
and
participado en el
using them to
programa
play with
tenían
children
mejores
who had
resultados y un
participated in the
mayor
program
desarrollo en
showed
general
overall
con los que
better
no habían
results in terms of
participado en el
development
programa y no
compared to
tenían
those
estos
who did
elementos
not
en casa.
participate in the program
Y para
and
el
did not
grupo entre
have
los
these
4 y los
toys
6
at
años
home.
encontramos algo muy
For children
interesante y
between
es que este
4 and
grupo
6
de
years
edad,
old,
los
we found
niños y los
interesting
cuidadores que habían
findings.
participado en el programa
Caregivers
mejoraron
who
sus habilidades
participated in the
inteligentes
program show
matemáticas,
significantly higher scores in
habilidades
emerging arithmetic and
socioemocionales
socio-emotional
en
skills,
comparación con los
such
niños de
as
los padres
maths,
que aún no habían
compared to
participado en
children
el
of parents who
programa y
had not
acá
yet
pues hubo una
participated in the
diferencia
program,
de 8
with a
puntos
difference
porcentuales.
of
Next
8
slide, please.
percentage points. Next slide, please.
Finalmente, para los cuidadores encontramos también algunos resultados
For
muy
caregivers, we
positivos.
also
En primer
found
lugar,
that
los
there were some
cuidadores
very positive
reflejaron que
results.
aumentaron su resiliencia y el manejo del
First,
estrés.
that
Por ejemplo,
their resilience
informaron
and
que
stress
dedicaban más
management
tiempo para relajarse, para
improved. They
conectar con otros
found
adultos, para
more
expresar sus
time to
sentimientos y
lay back,
emociones.
relax,
Y también encontramos algunos
and talk to
cambios
other
hacia la
adults,
perspectiva
share
de
their
género.
emotions. There were also
Por ejemplo, el
some
relacionamiento con las
interesting
parejas. En
changes
el caso de
concerning
los
gender
hombres,
perspectives and
manifestaron que ahora
couple
entablaban más
relationship.
conversaciones con sus
Men
parejas
mentioned
sobre sus
having more
sentimientos y
conversations with
sobre las
their
prácticas de crianza
wives
con sus
on
hijos y la
their
interacción que
knowledge,
tenían con ellos.
caregiving
Una
knowledge.
lección aprendida que tuvimos y
There
contarles un poco
was
además de las adaptaciones que
another
hicimos
lesson
en
that
el
we learned.
programa es que el cambio de comportamiento requiere de
The
más tiempo,
behavioral
requiere de un
change
esfuerzo
requires
también,
time
sobre
and
todo en las
reinforcement,
prácticas de género. Vimos
especially when
que
it
y
comes to
creemos que sigue
gender
hizo falta y que se
related
puede trabajar
practices.
hacia fortalecer
We need to
como el
continue
envío
working
de
towards
prácticas
this,
o compartir
strengthening and
prácticas
promoting
específicas del día a
practices
día
or sharing
con
some
los
specific
cuidadores,
day-to-day
como por
practices
ejemplo
with
cómo los hombres
caregivers.
pueden participar en bañar a
Men,
los niños, en preparar los
for instance,
alimentos, en
can
escuchar las
get
ideas y
involved
los
with
sentimientos de sus
bathing the
hijos
children,
e
listening to
inclusive en
them,
prácticas también del juego
or
en el día a
even
día. Esto
playing
era lo
games
que en
with their
general
children.
queríamos contarles. Muchas gracias y devuelvo la palabra a los
Thank you.
colegas de USAID.
The floor is back to our colleagues from USAID.
Thank you, Romila, Hytham, and Laura for those key lessons from Save the Children's projects. With that, I want to turn it over to Kat Kirk with USAID's Children and Adversity team to facilitate our Q&A session.
Well, I'm recognizing we are a little bit over time, so I think we'll have to pass on the Q&A, but I wanted to thank all of the speakers today for sharing their experiences and really excellent work. I think it really highlights the diversity of ways that we can support young children's development, and in particular, the importance in how we support the family in that process. We heard so much about the engagement of men from our colleagues at Save the Children, thinking about parent support for children who have additional needs in Cambodia and what that might look like, and how childcare as an essential function for women and the family in the means to also support children's development. So thank you again to everyone for joining us today. I will hand it back to my colleague, Caitlin, who will share some information about how you can continue to stay informed about the Thrive Act and progress of programs such as this. Thanks all.
Thank you, Kat. Time really flew by this morning. Thank you all for those insights you provided today. Following this webinar, we would like to invite you to take one of the 2 actions listed on our screen. either reviewing the Global Child Thrive Act webpage at childreninadversity.gov or sharing something you learned today with a colleague to help keep this conversation going around early childhood development. And next slide, please. That brings us to the end of our webinar. Thank you to our attendees for joining us today and asking those wonderful questions and comments in the chat. I would like to thank our speakers from across government departments and projects for providing insight into the work they do every day, and to our YP2LE staff who have helped facilitate this webinar. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of your day. We will be sending out materials from this webinar in the coming weeks. Thank you again.